Hi everyone, it's Tony Campana at Tony Marie's Creations, and I wanted to jump on today and show you a card that I recently made. We recently did at my monthly card class, and it's just something a little different. It's a fun fold card, and I'm calling it a front diagonal easel card. I'm not really sure if that's the right name for it, but that's what I'm going to go with. And it is going to use, try to get my screen a little less wonky there. It's going to use our In Symmetry stamp set, which is in the annual catalog. And I really was drawn to it. I just like the bold stamps and just the design of this. And I really also like the font that's used on the stamps. And this can be found in our annual catalog, and it's on page 112 and 113. And this is actually a punch bundle. It comes with a punch that makes all of these little leaf type punches. And yes, so everything is on this page, showing you some samples that you can make with this set, which I love all of them. I think I'm going to actually do a lot of copying the catalog with this set. But I did use this as my primary set, and I also used a host benefit that is also in our annual catalog. And this is something new this year. We usually have host stamp sets that you can earn when you have an order of that reaches at least a minimum of $150. So once you reach $150, you then are able to select something from the host section of the catalog, and that starts on page 170 to 171. And you'll see a value shown with the stamp set, and that's basically what you will pay using your host rewards on your order. So what I am using is the Pattern Party 12 by 12 Designer Series paper. It's an $18 cost, but if you have a minimum of $150 on your order, you will start off with a minimum of a $15 stamping reward, host reward. And you can apply that $15 towards this pack of paper and only pay $3 for it. And this is such a great value. You get 48 sheets of paper for what would be $3 if you only had a minimum of $150 order. And what I really like about this paper is on the one side, you've got a lot of very bright patterns, but on the opposite side you have these amazing black and white patterns as well. And that's what I'm using primarily on the card that I'm going to show you today. I'm using some of the black and white patterns, and there's just so many different patterns to work with. I particularly like this buffalo check. I like them all, and here's a great fall type pattern. But I'm using the reverse side of this paper for the card that I'm going to show you today. So if you are placing an order, again, it needs to be a minimum of $150. That's when you will start earning host rewards, and you can apply your host rewards to these host items as well as anything else in the catalog. You're not restricted to just picking something off of these two pages. Your host rewards can be applied to anything in the catalog. You just, based on what you have earned, and I'll use the example of a minimum party, which is $150. You would have $15 host credit to use towards anything in the catalog. So let me move my catalog out of the way and show you the card. So this is the card, and it's called a Diagonal Fold Easel, and it stands up with the help of a little sentiment on the inside. It's kind of hard to show on the camera. I'll turn it a little bit this way so that you can see, but it's always open and on display, so the person that receives your card could actually set this up and make it a little bit of a home decor type of thing as well. And the other thing that's a little different is this is a square card. This is a 4x4 square card. So, and as I said, I used the black and white. I love black and white and pink, black and white and red. I think black and white is just a classic color combination, and anytime you add a pop of color to it, it really helps pull the whole thing together. So we'll go ahead and get started, and I'm going to just move this off to the side a little bit. See if you can still see that there in the camera. And also, if you like this card and would like to receive the PDF for it with the instructions on how to make it, just drop me a comment on the YouTube video and I'll get in touch with you and send you the PDF for it. So when I do my card classes, I tend to put everything that's needed for the card in one of our envelopes. It just keeps everything all together. So I'm just pulling these things out. I'm also using some of the black and white checked ribbon that you can find in our new mini, I'm saying mini because that's what our mini holiday, that's what we always called it, but now it's just called the mini catalog. But we have two that come out every year. One is in the spring and one is in the fall. And the fall one usually is filled with holiday related or seasonal type stamps and accessories. So the ribbon that I'm using, let me find it real quick, is called Black and White Gingham Ribbon. Let me find the page. It's on page 51 of our mini catalog, and it's part of a Halloween suite, but you can order that separately. So that's the black and white gingham ribbon that we're going to be using today. It ties very nicely. It's not very bulky. It's very soft and easy to work with. And then I've got a piece of her cardstock, and I always use our thick cardstock for my card bases. And it's just that it just makes it stand up a little bit better. I think it's a little more sturdy. And then I just use our regular basic white cardstock to do my layering with. So we'll start with a piece of the thick white cardstock, and it's measured 8.5 by 4 1/4, and then I scored it at 4 1/4. And then I took the front piece, and I'm going to see if you can see this score here on the front. There's a diagonal score, and you can use a scoring board, whatever you have to do your scoring. I use our trimmer, and you just want to make sure you're working with the front of the card, and then you're going to place the top right-hand corner in the tray, and then come down to where that first 4 1/4 inch score is, and line that up in the tray there as well. And then most importantly, make sure you're grabbing your scoring blade, which is the light gray or light tan blade in your trimmer, if you have the Stampin' Up! Trimmer, and then put a nice score line down there. I can't tell you how many times I had the wrong blade in position and cut through my cardstock when I did not mean to. Very frustrating. So that is our card base. Then we're using the basic white cardstock, and we have a piece that is 3 3/4 by 3 inches, and a piece that is 1 3/4 inches by 1 1/2 inches. That's the sentiment. And then we're using our basic black cardstock, which is what we're going to use to mat these pieces. So the larger piece of the black is 3 7/8 by 3 1/8, and that's going to mat just like that. And for the sentiment, it's 1 7/8 by 1 5/8. That's going to mat just like that. And then with my paper, I picked a pattern for the inside that I would be able to stamp on and be able to see the images. Some of the designs are a little too busy. So for instance, this would not be a good pattern to use for the inside because you're not going to really see if you try to stamp on this. And the same with this one. It's a little less busy, but you're still not going to be able to see very much if you stamp on it. So I went with one that was just, you know, not quite as busy. So that is cut at, I believe this is 4 by 4. And then I picked 2 other patterns, and you can pick any patterns that you want. I just happened to pick these 2. You're going to cut a 4 by 4 inch piece of one pattern and a 4 by 4 inch piece of another pattern, and then you're going to cut them diagonally. So you'll have 2 extra pieces left over, so you can make a second card using what you had left over. Okay, so they're the pieces that we're going to use. And I guess I'll start with the inside. I wanted to put a little bit of focus on the front and use these small flowers. And I'm also using, let me find my ink pads. Where are my ink pads? I just set them down. I do this every time. I start off with everything right where I need it. And somehow, oh, here they are. Somehow they move away. So I'm going to work with our polished pink, which is one of our new in colors for this year. And the small flower. And I'm just going to randomly stamp this flower around the inside of the card. Now keep in mind, we're going to put this sentiment in here. So you're going to cover up a little bit of the inside. So don't worry too much about covering the entire inside. And I see that I kind of messed up here. So let me see if I can, not too bad. That's what I love about the photopolymer stamps, is that if you have a boo-boo, it is usually pretty easy to come back and correct. Okay, so I've got that piece done. I'm going to just set that aside for right now. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to work on, let's see, we'll work on the sentiment. Because I also need that little pink flower one more time, because I just like to put a small little flower on the corner, just again to tie in that image. Let me close this so that I don't put my hand in it. And I am missing the sentiment stamp. I may have taken that out and used it. Oh, yes, I did. I didn't have it ready for a block here, so bear with me. Bear with me just one moment. Sorry, I don't have a Stampin' Up! Block handy. I've got them all tied up with other projects right now, so I'm going to stamp the "You Are Perfectly Unique," and I'm using black Memento ink for that. Okay, perfect. Perfect, perfect. Okay, now I can go ahead and attach my sentiment, since that's all I'm going to do on that square of paper. And again, use your adhesive of choice. I just happen to have the liquid mono adhesive here. So, and I do like it because it gives me a little bit of time to line this up if I happen to be a little bit off. Okay, so we're going to set that piece aside. Now I'm going to go ahead and work on the front of this card. And I did this a certain way because it was instructing the class attendees that I want to make sure that I've got enough room at the bottom of this to tie my ribbon. So we started our flower stamping at the very top, and then we worked our way down just so that we had enough room. So I will go back to my polished pink. Get a good cover there. And I'm leaving about, I want to say about 1/8 of an inch space at the top. Give that a good press. Okay. And then we're pretty much done with that color. Now we're going to come back in with our black memento. And then I'm just going to go ahead and build the flower going down the card. I'm using the plain stem. And there's a little notch in here at the base of the flower that might not be as obvious. I'm a little crooked on that too. All right, well, let's turn that over. As I always say in my class, you always have the other side. And hopefully I won't mess this one up. It's a little bit because I can't really get my head under the camera here. I might have to try that a little bit better on the second part so I can see a bit more. So excuse me if my head happens to come in here. There, that's much, much better. Okay, then I'm going to come in and use the leaf, which I have said to the class, it either looks like a big bushy mustache if you look at it one way, or it could be the end of a whale tail if you look at it the other way. But this is going to be the leaf. And again, because it's photopolymer, you can easily see where it needs to be to line up. And then I'm going to come in with my sentiment, which says, "Hey friend." And I'm going to line it up with, the stem is lined up with the F on friend. There. And then that's pretty much it for the stamping of that. And I have noticed that this still seems to be a little bit off center. Just a little bit. But that's okay. So what I also did before I attached it to my card base was, then I came in to do my ribbon. And I'm not going to use the liquid glue on this simply because it takes a little too long to dry. So we'll come in here with our stamp and seal. And I've been doing my ribbons this way for a while. I will sometimes tie a real bow, but I find this works a little bit easier for classes because a lot of people have bow anxiety where they just get so flustered trying to tie a bow. And I don't want anybody to have anxiety while they're doing my classes. So I cut a piece that's a little bit longer than the panel that it's going on. And then I turn it over and I run a piece of tape, double-sided tape on one side, flip that end over. And I did cut this. I was pretty generous on this piece of ribbon. I could have cut it smaller. Okay, so now I've got the base that's on there. And I'm also going to go ahead and attach this now before I put in my second piece, and I'll explain why here in a second. Because if I were to add this to the front now, it's going to have a little bit of a bulk in the front. And when I try to go and tape this, if I were using the tape runner, it makes it a little bit more difficult, I think, to attach to your card layer. So now I'm working with a nice 2 flat surfaces, and I don't have to worry about the little bump from the knot. But now I'm just going to slip this under. You want to make sure you don't put tape on this centerpiece. Sometimes people want to, you know, just to keep it more secure, they'll put some tape on here. But if you do that, then you're not able to slide this up and tie off your knot. I guess you could, if you knew you were going to put it like on the left-hand side or the right-hand side, you could go ahead and put a little glue dot or something in there. That would probably work. But, and again, I was pretty generous with the ribbon because it gets a little harder to cut when you are working with a short piece of ribbon. And again, we don't want anyone getting frustrated when they're making the cards. So now that's my front panel. And then all that's left is to come in and just assemble the card. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my pattern piece for the inside. And honestly, because I'm using the thick cardstock as the base, you really don't need to have the DSP on the inside. I just thought it added a nice little extra layer of design to the card, but it's not needed. And now I'm going to go ahead and put my two triangles on the front. And again, doesn't matter which way it goes, it's entirely up to you. But when you do apply this, you want to make sure that the edge of this is not resting on the score line. Okay, you want to make sure that score line is free to move about, free to move about the cabin, free to fold. Okay, and if you put your DSP too close to that, it's going to cause you some difficulty. So I'll go ahead and add a little liquid glue to this. And you don't need a lot. I find this to be a very strong glue. And just trying to make sure that my borders on the top and side are even. And then I'll do that second piece. And again, you can change this around so that, you know, one of my class attendees used the pink leopard print on the front of her card, which was certainly her prerogative. As I always tell them, you can do whatever you want with your card. Doesn't have to look exactly like mine. You just are limited to the supplies that I provided. So, all right, so that's the front of the card. Now, I want to give you a tip on how to apply this to the front, because you're only going to want to put adhesive on this bottom panel so that the card will then pop up. Okay, and what I found that I thought worked for me, it might not seem that easy to you, but I thought it was pretty simple. I just laid this down and kind of centered it for where I wanted it on the card front. And then I just slightly lifted the front of the card and put my thumb here. And then I folded it and then turned the whole thing over. Okay. And now I'm going to use a pencil and I'm just going to put a line on the back of the panel right where that fold is. Okay. And that's going to show me where I want to put my dimensionals. So I only want dimensionals on this bottom right-hand side of the panel. And now I can visually see without having to think about lining it up and getting it in the right spot. Now I just need to find my dimensionals, which have gotten buried. So I kind of did one in the corner, and then I just did 3 here. And if you felt like you wanted it to be a little bit more secure, you could add a few more in there, but I didn't find it was necessary to do that. Okay, and now all you have to do is come back in here And again, because you're working with such a small front panel, you're really just eyeing it up so that you're even top to bottom and side to side. And you're going to press down that bottom part. And now the card folds and you don't see anything on the back because you've placed it below where that fold line was. Okay. And the last thing that you do is to put in your sentiment. And the reason we do this last is because this is where you're going to decide where it needs to be on the inside of the card. And I found that it's kind of, it works a little bit better. It's not quite center, it's a little bit off. Okay. And you've got some wiggle room when you put this on too. You want to put it on with dimensionals, and the reason you want that little bit of height is so that the card will rest on it. And I am pretty generous with the dimensionals on this as well, because I don't want this peeling off or falling off, because it's what's going to hold the card front in place. So you're just going to have to kind of use one hand to figure out your placement of where you want the fold, and then the second one you can press that down. And then that's it. That is a front diagonal fold easel card using the In Symmetry and also our wonderful DSP, which I just had it. I don't know where this stuff gets to. I don't have that much room around me to place things. But it's the DSP that is available as a host item in the back of the catalog. Oh, and I almost forgot. Geez, bling. I almost forgot the most important thing is the bling. And I had already colored some of our basic rhinestones. And I don't know if you knew this, but our basic rhinestones and our basic pearls are great embellishments to have on hand, because you can make them just about any color you need using our alcohol markers. So as I said, I already did these for the class, and I always put them in a little Ziploc bag so that they're all handy and ready to use. But I've got 3 little spare ones that are sitting here. Now, it would seem like you would want to use the brush tip to color with, but because these rhinestones are actually cut, their surface is a little rough. And I've found from using this and doing this a few times is that using the brush tip, it tends to be a little rough on the brush tip. So I've been making myself use the pointed end more, and it just takes a little bit more time, and by a little bit more I mean a couple of seconds. It's really not too bad. But I do find that I have to go back and color it a second time just to get that deepness of the color. And I also feel that it works better when you're coloring your rhinestones or your pearls to go with the darker shades of alcohol markers. The light ones tend to not show up quite as well, but they still work. So, and I'm going to just set those aside since I already have 3 of them here. So I'm going to just go ahead and place these. And I always do an odd number of embellishments, and that's because our eyes are drawn more to an odd number of items than they are an even number. So 3 or 5 or 1. And then also I put them in a bit of a triangle pattern because, again, it draws the eye more around your image. So the other thing is I'll stamp the envelope. And I've got the little flowers here, so I'll just make use of those. I like to dress up the envelope somehow. It just kind of pulls everything together, so I'll just do a few of these little flowers in the corner. And now I've got a coordinated envelope. You could also take an extra piece of the DSP and cover your flap. That always looks nice too when you've got a coordinating card flap that goes with your card. So that's the card today. My 4x4 diagonal easel card. I hope you enjoyed it. It's something a little bit different. And again, if you would like to receive the instructions on how to make this card, just drop a comment on the YouTube video and I will make sure to get one out to you. So thanks so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you back soon.